Hey guys, Zach here with Minimal Escapes, and today I wanted to let you guys in on a big secret that I've been keeping. For the past couple of months I've been doing a little experiment, and I'm quite happy with how the experiment has turned out, so I'm going to let you guys in on it and show you guys. So the experiment all starts with these buckets right here. You can see I've got this one that's full of like duckweed and other wood. This one just has a bunch of assorted rocks in it, and then this little middle container has water and it has some alder cones in it. Now, these are full of water, and what I've been doing is I've just been leaving rocks or wood or substrate that I've taken out of old tanks, and I've put some in here, and then I've just kept some water in. Now, this does a lot for the rocks and the substrate, but after I've done that, and I use that old substrate, I've been putting in new sand, new sticks, new rocks, stuff that I want to use in some projects in the future. Like these alder cones, I don't have a use for them quite yet, but I'm going to soak them for the next couple weeks for the foreseeable future. This does a lot for the rocks and sticks and everything, and it also does a lot for the tank. So, let me explain it in depth for you guys. Now, there are many benefits to keeping all the stuff in the buckets down here, but I'll just go through a couple of reasons why I personally do it. So the first is just going to be, as far as storage goes, it's just convenient for me. I don't have that much hardscape or that much substrate that I'm going through. Most of it's usually in my tanks, so any that comes out, it's good for me to keep it in these buckets and ready to use for the next tanks. Now the second reason, this is the main reason why I wanted to do this, was to keep the beneficial bacteria. So as you know, when you cycle a tank, it can take a long time to get a bacteria colony going, but with the substrate and rocks already pre-submerged, and the sticks as well, this allows for beneficial bacteria to start to grow on all of these surfaces and in the substrate. Now, obviously, bacteria colonies in here aren't going to be perfect. They're not going to be the best bacteria colonies, and they're not going to be able to handle the load right away of having like hundreds of fish in a tank, but that's not their purpose. The reason why I've got the substrate and hardscape in buckets like this is to build a small colony on them, and so that it will seed the tank, right? I'm not going to use all of the substrate from the bucket to go into one tank. Now I've got this substrate in here, and I can take a scoop or two to put it into any of my various tanks now that I'm setting up. This just starts to kickstart the bacteria and allows the cycling process to be a little bit faster, especially if you are going to go for more of a ecosystem style tank. It lets the bacteria build a little quicker. Now with these buckets, I've got this built up bacteria colony. You might ask, why do I do it? And simply put, it's because I want to be a little bit cheaper with my tanks, right? I want to have tanks up and running and some nice hardscapes in it, and I don't want to go out and buy the bottles of bacteria. You can do that, right? And if you only have one tank, it's great, and you only have to do it like once a year probably. But if you set up a tank and you want sort of a cheaper option, right, I would recommend trying this out. It does take a little bit longer, but it's definitely something that you could try. Like the buckets are $5 each, so it's pretty cheap. Now, another reason why I do this is because some driftwood, and especially botanicals, if you add them into tank, they're going to leach tannins, right? It's technically tannic acid, and most of the time it just dyes the water a different color, but it also does drop pH, and I kind of want to mitigate that and avoid that as much as I can in my tanks. So I'll soak things like driftwood and botanicals. Now, if I soak them for a couple weeks at a time, and then I add them into a tank, it stops that leaching from happening. I want to try to avoid doing water changes on a tank that's cycling as much as I can. However, if tannins do start to build up and it starts to look bad and I'm not enjoying it, I will do a water change to get the clarity back up so that I do pay attention to the tank. However, with this method, I don't need to do that anymore, and I'm finding the botanicals don't leach as much tannins. Now, with the driftwood, while they do leach some tannins and it does dye the water, the one thing that I have found that this helps to sort of control is, I'm not quite sure what it is. It's a white slime or fungus. Some think it's like the sugar in the wood that comes out, but certain types of driftwood, you guys will know, when you add them into a tank, they'll get that white film over them. And well, it's not harmful to your tank. In fact, shrimp do love it. I just personally don't like the appearance of it, and I know that if I get rid of it early on, then it's not going to be a problem later. Another reason why I do the bucket system this way is because these do function very well as plant storage containers. So you saw that one of them had a lot of duckweed in it, but sometimes I'll take trimmings from plants and I'll put them in here just so that the plants can float until I'm ready to use them. If I go through a big trimming, I don't want to throw out plants. I know that you guys probably don't want to throw out plants. So this is a good way that I can keep the stems and epiphytes and everything else nice and hydrated without having to designate a specific storage tank to them. Stems are going to be perfectly fine if they float for a couple of days, and it's just a temporary thing, but it works quite well. Now, the final reason why I do this is for water changes, right? In the odd event that I do a water change, if something's looking wrong in the tank, which I do try to avoid, but say I do, I like to have a little bit of a safety net. In this tank here, you can see that there are hundreds, not hundreds, but 100-ish little guppy fry that I'm trying to raise up, and if they overload the tank and I need to do a water change for some reason, I don't want to run the risk of having them sucked up into the tube and shot off into the sewers, right? I can change the water into this bucket and I'm gonna know, okay, when I drain it, or I can scoop them out and I'll be able to physically see the fish, and it just adds a little bit of safety. So hopefully you guys have found this video interesting, or you found the information useful. But if you guys did enjoy, please consider subscribing, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.